Ahoy, #Zach here. Today I'm going to talk to you all about World War II in the Mediterranean. The campaigns launched by Italy in the Mediterranean area during World War II don't get a lot of attention in history books. And this is mostly because they didn't have the same stunning effect that Germany and Japan had during their massive campaigns, where they took on opponents way bigger than they were able to face and did not have, in the end, success. However, Italy still had some very big successes and very big campaigns that they launched, and there was a very real possibility that they could have established a new Roman Empire in the modern world.
This map shows the many countries that were allied to Italy in 1940 when they joined World War II. The red shows Italy itself and the colonies that they had direct control over in Africa. The black shows other Axis powers that were militarily allied with them and also at war with them against the Allies. And the green shows economic trading partners. Even though they didn't actually get involved in World War II, there was a lot of trade that economically benefited the Axis powers. As this map shows, it was Italy's dream to recreate a new Roman Empire in the Mediterranean, what Benito Mussolini, the Italian fascist dictator, called Mare Nostrum, our sea.
Shortly after the German invasion of France, in May of 1940, Italy declared war on the allies of Britain and France as well, and also sent troops into the campaign.
By the end of June, the Italians had taken many French territories, including the French Alps in southern France, towards the top of this map, the island of Corsica, which is right next to Italy itself, and the vast deserts of French North Africa, today the countries of Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia.
These successes were met with great enthusiasm by the Italian fascists, and thoroughly satisfied their territorial desires in the West. However, by the fall, they turned to the east.
The Italians set their sights on Greece, and using ground forces stationed in Albania, the country just to the northwest of Greece, they sent their forces in October of 1940. However, in what many historians call the first setback of the Axis powers in World War II, the Greeks strongly resisted and even pushed the Italians back into Albania. However, by March of 1941, with the British sending in reinforcements, the Germans knew that they needed to help their ally and sent in a large number of tanks, which quickly defeated the resistance, and by mid-April, all of Greece was under Axis control.
This campaign in Greece had huge impacts beyond just the occupation of the country itself. This event really enshrined Germany as the major Axis power in Europe and really cemented Italy as a second-rate power. This is actually a surprising reversal because Mussolini was the first fascist dictator to rise in Europe, and he supported Hitler in his rise and actually seemed to be the dominant power in the relationship for a while. However, those days were clearly in the past.
By the summer of 1941, Germany wanted to launch its invasion of the USSR. However, before they did, they were deeply concerned about Yugoslavia to their south, not because they saw them as a military threat, but because they believed that Italy would launch a war against them and suffer the same defeats that they did against Greece, leading to Germany having a hostile nation on its southern border with no armies to protect themselves against them. Therefore, Germany launched a preemptive campaign against the Yugoslavians with Italian support.
Now, with most of the Mediterranean secure, Italy turned towards the last target in the eastern Mediterranean, the one with the most strategic value, Egypt.
It would be very hard to overestimate the significance of Egypt to the grand strategy of World War II. Firstly, it was the lifeline of the British Empire, connecting England itself to colonies in the Middle East, East Africa, Southeast Asia, Australia, and most importantly, India.
Secondly, Egypt provided a lot of resources. Not only grains, but also their textile industry was booming. In addition, Egypt carries a lot of prestige with the pyramids and the former Roman colonial positions. It would have been an amazing success for Italy to conquer Egypt.
Another game changer is that Egypt would give Italy and the Axis powers access to the vast oil reserves of the Middle East and even a route into southern Russia, an area that Germany failed to take during the Battle of Stalingrad. The effect on the war, if in this scenario, would be drastic.
Everything was set up for the Axis to continue dominating World War II. However, this is where the corruption and cronyism inherent in fascism really had a lot of negative impacts. What do I mean by this? Well, in pursuit of complete power, Mussolini had appointed a lot of people into high positions of power, including military, not based off of their skills or merits, but by personal loyalty. This led to very inept and very inefficient commanders being put into high positions of power. And so, when the Italians decided to invade Egypt, they only sent their forces in a few dozen miles and then dug in as if prepared to face a World War I style battle and didn't really do much in the terms of an aggressive attack. When the British did counterattack, the Italians didn't put up much of a resistance at all, and this prompted many British officials to say, "Never has so much been surrendered by so many to so few." This is based off of a famous Winston Churchill quote, and it conveys the idea that the Italians didn't put up much of a fight and ended up retreating back into their territory.
The British forces drove the Italians all the way back into north central Libya, and believing the war in North Africa to be won, they pulled back into Egypt, where their supply lines could resupply them with food and fuel and other military necessities, and then they divided their forces and encamped them, waiting for other action later in the war.
However, this is when Germany again became involved. Germany sent a unit called the Afrika Corps under the famous General Erwin Rommel, nicknamed the Desert Fox. His units were specially designed for combat in the deserts with long-range, low-trajectory cannons that would shoot heavy metal darts straight in to enemy tanks from extreme distances. This allowed the Germans, along with their blitzkrieg tactics employed against France and Russia, to drive into Egypt, getting very close to their objective.
This is where the greatest weakness of the Axis powers was made very visible: logistics and resources. They didn't have the population, the territory, or the infrastructure to support massive armies over extended distances and long periods of time. They just couldn't do it when compared with the massive countries of Russia and the United States and the massive British Empire as well.
In spite of amazing success on the battlefield, the Germans had to retreat due to low supplies.
In a stunning reversal that made the campaigns in North Africa famous for their massive maneuvers over wide deserts, the British drove the Germans all the way back into Italian North Africa, only for the Germans to be resupplied and drive the British all the way back into Egypt.
The wide visibility and the quick pace of modern transportation and communication allowed there to be a board game like situation during battles where generals could observe the entire battlefield and send units around one way or the other in a way very similar to lots of war games today.
Then, in November of 1942, the Battle of El Alamein, where British General Bernard Montgomery became the first commander to decisively beat Rommel in the deserts of North Africa through military means. He anticipated a German attack around his flank and used it to ambush a large portion of the German tanks. And again, partially due to low supplies of fuel, but also due to the extreme damage that many of his tanks took, Rommel was forced to retreat again.
And by now, the British General Montgomery wasn't Rommel's only problem. At this point, the United States had entered the war and was coming into the Mediterranean.
In late 1942, while the British drove across the desert yet again, this time under General Montgomery, the United States launched Operation Torch under the famous United States General Patton, and together they closed in on German and Italian forces in North Africa from both east and west.
Although Rommel was still a very skilled general and dealt many blows to the British and the Americans, including at Kasserine Pass in early 1943, by May, the British and Americans had closed in, and in Tunisia, more Germans and Italians surrendered than at Stalingrad. It was the largest surrender of Axis forces in all of World War II.
Although both Generals Patton and Montgomery would gain a lot of fame in their races for glory in Sicily and southern Italy, there would not be many more significantly strategic events in the Mediterranean theater for the rest of the war, as Italy had several coups and internal struggles where they tried to switch sides multiple times over the following years, and the large mountains of Italy made advances very slow and battles very costly. The war would be decided in Northern Europe, in France, Germany, and Eastern Europe.
During World War II, this campaign for attacking Italy was very controversial among the Allies. It was called strongly for by Winston Churchill, but Stalin, another major Allied commander, was very opposed to it. And while the geography was a major role in the Allies being very slow to advance, it was also German generalship that played, yet again, a key role in the failure of the Allies to accomplish much, as German General von Kesselring was very good at organizing defenses and ambushes along mountain ranges.
Throughout World War II, Italy did conquer very much land in the Mediterranean, and, with Germany's help, almost established a new Roman Empire in the modern age. However, a combination of the flaws of fascism, low resources, and skilled generalship by the Allies led to, in the end, a collapse of this ambition.
Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something new. Please comment, like, subscribe, and see you next time.